The Movie Health Podcast is proudly supported by Telemoods by eClapper Project Inc. Telemoods recommends which movies and TV series to watch by matching the user's mood and real-time offer of all streaming platforms. Download Telemoods today. Welcome to the Health Podcast. We talk about movies and mental health. This is AJ.
This is Catherine.
And in this episode, we're talking about two movies, both in the cinemas. Those movies are Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Let's start with Furiosa, the fifth in the Mad Max universe of movies. That was actually released last week, directed by George Miller, the great Australian auteur, written by George Miller and Nick Therios, who also wrote Fury Road with George Miller, which is the previous Mad Max film, starring Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth and Tom Burke. What does the synopsis say? So the origin story of a renegade warrior, Furiosa, before her encounter and team up with Mad Max. So this is obviously a prequel to Fury Road. It is a saga. So everyone's comparing it to Fury Road. Unfortunately, I think it's a very different film. Fury Road, which was released in 2015, starring Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron as Furiosa. This movie is over it's a saga, so it's over I think a 15-year period. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Furiosa, I saw it last week in IMAX in Darling Harbour. My goodness, that new IMAX is pretty remarkable. But I tell you what, you really need to experience Furiosa in a cinema and on a big screen with lots of with big sound. I thought it was a remarkable movie making, true artistry by George Miller. Such a large film, such a different film. There's still unbelievable set pieces, huge action pieces, really entertaining performances. Particularly, I'd say by Chris Hemsworth as Dementus. He really does get to do a lot in this movie. What did you think about Furiosa, Catherine?
I really liked it too. I think the cinematographer is Simon Duggan, who's Australian and New Zealand. He also did 300, The Rise of the Empire, The Great Gatsby, and the I, Robot movies. So I think that's really interesting. I really like this post-apocalyptic prequel. I think Anya Taylor-Joy is amazing. She's actually one of my favorite actresses. And I think they cast her really well. But I also think the younger version, played by an Australian actress, Alila Brown, was done really well. You can really see the fury and the mystery in both their eyes. And, Anya Taylor-Joy only had like 30 lines of dialogue. They were really purposeful. And I have to say, though, that my favorite character was Chris Hemsworth's Dementus. I think he was hilarious. He put a really cool spin on the warlord. And you couldn't help but empathize with him too. And I think his biker horde were really funny as well. The other notable character was played by Tom Burke, Praetorian Jack. So the one who has kind of like a romantic, but not too much with Furiosa. And I think the movie itself was really intense, which I enjoyed. There's that really exciting and explosive chase sequence that goes for 15 minutes, but you don't even realize that it's that long, because I think your eyes are glued to the screen. And
is that on the war rig?
Yes.
And that's with Praetorian Jack and Furiosa. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that was just it's just unbelievable that there is a mix between practical and CGI within this, as there was in Fury Road. But yeah, the set pieces and the coordination of those scenes are just unbelievable, because you always have a sense of, have an awareness of what's happening. So it's not as though you get lost in one sort of one little shot of someone jumping off a car, you can see someone jumping off the car, and you can see an explosion over here, and so it gives you this full perspective of what's actually happening on the war rig. Yeah, it was awesome.
It was. And it's actually Australia's most expensive movie.
Really.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
it was filmed in Australia.
yeah.
We,
It
we've
was.
we've done, there's been quite a few big, well, big blockbuster movies that have been filmed in Australia
Yeah,
recently.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it was shot over 8 months. And actually 3,000 people were employed for this film. So
Wow.
the scale of it is just extraordinary.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these are the things that we tend to forget about these types of films. Um, and it ends up being such a focus on the box office.
Mhm.
How much is this going to make? Is it going to save the summer blockbuster? Is it going to be better than Fury Road? And I think that's part of the challenge of being a well-known director and having that established IP within the other Mad Max movies.
Mhm.
But it's very much a standalone movie. It's the longest movie of the Mad Max within the Mad Max world.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, there's just a lot more story than typically in the other Mad Maxes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really liked how they had I don't know if you like Angus Sampson, but I think the actor he plays like a short cameo appearance, but he's a comedian. He's a famous Australian comedian, and he's been in many movies in Hollywood, and
Mm.
he was in this film as well. I don't know if you know him.
Is he in Chopper?
Not sure. But he has like a beard. Anyway, and also the actress Charlie Fraser, who played the mother of Furiosa, Mary Jo Bassa. She was actually in Anyone But You. Like when
Yeah.
I was watching her, I was like, I recognize her face. But I think she, like the limited time she had on screen was still very effective.
What was the guy's name?
Angus Sampson.
Oh yeah, yeah, Angus Sampson. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
know
you
him.
recognize his face straight away, and it's like he makes you like. I mean, he makes me smile all the time. So I'm like, okay, like it's nice to have him like randomly in this movie. But yeah, I would describe this movie as like a fireball. I
Mm,
think I read it somewhere as well. And the really interesting thing is that George Miller used to be an ER doctor, so he
mm,
treated people who experienced car accidents. So he has an understanding of physical and mental trauma,
mhm,
and from that knowledge and skill set, he was also able to, I guess, when he moved into filmmaking, when he wrote the first Mad Maxes. There is the whole element of like driving, and apparently instead of saying action he said engines running or something. He
mm.
had like a different start to takes, which was like fascinating.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of like analyses of Mad Max and how he's actually he has PTSD, and it's interesting because I think Furiosa also has it, and obviously she goes on her own journey of rage and vengeance.
Mm.
um yeah, so I really liked watching it as well. I didn't watch it in IMAX, but I did see it in a VMAX, and it was still like very loud and very powerful.
Yeah, and I think another, I suppose, um, point of analysis with George Miller, and we sort of talked about this before we started recording, is you could also just watch this movie Furiosa for you know really, you view it as a work of art.
Mm,
Like the amount of design that goes into the set pieces and the costumes and the world is remarkable, and the fact that George Miller is still doing this, and it's you know I mean it's established IP, but it's original content, and it's episodic filmmaking. Um, we just don't see as much of this anymore, but B, it also really needs to be appreciated. I've got at home. I've got um, this thick book from Mad Max, um, Fury Road,
mm,
and apparently, well, and just the work that goes into the production design, for that went into Fury Road, and apparently they'd written um, this film first, and so they'd written this film, but they decided to you know go with Fury Road first. And I think even Charlie Charlie Theron. How do you pronounce
Charlie's.
Charlize
Yeah.
Theron? Um, learn about that
Mm.
and was keen to actually do the prequel
Mm.
first. But I think they made the decision that the lapse of time or the time in between the last Mad Max
Yeah.
and the the George Miller wanted to do another Mad Max, and so they went with Fury Road, which was very very simple story. It was a chase, um, and I think Charlie's was pretty disappointed with that.
Yeah. She wanted to be part of it.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
and so yeah, it's interesting how it's worked out, but
Mm.
um, yeah, it look the movie itself is remarkable. I mean, I don't really know what else to say apart from you really need to experience it in a cinema initially if you can. Um, it's really hard to compare it to Fury Road, but don't.
Yeah.
It needs to
Exactly.
be treated by itself. Yeah, I would also agree about Tom Burke's Victorian Jack character. Um, he has a great Aussie accent.
Mm. Yeah. And yeah, I didn't know he was British.
No, he's British because
Yeah.
he's in. If you haven't seen it, you should check out what's called the souvenir. I think it's called the souvenir.
Okay.
It's
Haven't
a
heard it.
two-part. It's pretty heavy story.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
he's very good in it too. Is it souvenir?
Yeah. He really sold me on his Aussie accent for sure.
Check out the souvenir. It's brilliant. I mean, it's got to be in the right headspace for it, but yeah,
Yeah.
really beautiful film. So he was really good. Um, I'd agree with Anya Taylor Joy. I mean, she did a lot of didn't have a lot of dialogue,
Mm.
but did a lot of acting with her eyes and her facial
Yeah.
expression. Um, you know, to Chris Hemsworth's character, um, Dementis. It's kind of I was thinking, sort of like the Barbie scenario
Mm.
where obviously Barbie was about Barbie and Margot Robbie was very good in Barbie, but Ken, you know,
Sean.
shone. He really made the movie,
Yeah.
and I'd say it's a similar case for Furiosa. I don't think Chris Hemsworth has really had the opportunity to do this type of character before. I did some reading, listened to some podcasts that he really got into the character and was really exploring everything from why does he have this teddy to
Mm.
what drives him. And I think what drives Dementis is a very similar story to Furiosa, where Dementis at some point had lost his family in this dystopian world, and that actually drove him mad,
Mhm.
and that madness drives him for more power
Yep. To become a tyrant.
to become
Yeah.
a tyrant. And yeah, he has a great time. There's a lot that he can do. His character spans over a 15-year period. His beard goes in different shades of color. At one point, I think it's a nice blonde, then it goes red, then it goes grey.
Mhm.
Um, not spoiling anything, but I really like the final scene with Furiosa and
Yeah.
Dementis. I thought the exchange was really powerful. The choices they made for that. How was Furiosa going to get revenge? Also, not to spoil anything, Dementis has something to do with Furiosa's rage as well. Um,
And I just wanted to say as well, so it
yeah.
shows the harshness and the brutality of the world that George Miller created. It's a very visceral movie, and just to maybe if we wanted to end talking about Furiosa on this note, it's like it's a film where obviously there's been a lot of hard work, but everyone, it's like you know that people had a lot of fun on it.
Mm,
So I think that's why it's a joy to watch because
mm,
you know that like everyone loved it and really put their artistry into it.
mm,
But it was a lot of persevering work. Like trying to work in those elements would have been
mm. And I should have found
easy.
out, but I think at one point I heard it could have been the war rig
Mm.
scene that actually took like 72 days to film. There was one particular,
Mm.
I don't think it was one stunt, I think it was one set piece. I mean, it took 8 months to film in
Yeah.
total, but um, given you know, and I'm sure it's not just George Miller, but there's a shared interest to try and make the film as practical as
Yeah.
possible. Going back to the roots of the original Mad Max, where they're flipping real cars and real explosions. Just the risk that's associated with with those practical stunts and practical setups, um, and not just relying on CGI. It's
Mm-hmm.
just yeah, it's just still so awesome to see. I did have a question for you. So, um, Furiosa's name is that's her name, Furiosa, right? So, sh we're at the very start of the movie. We're introduced to Furiosa, um, within the green place, picking a. I think it's a pear or a peach. It's not an apple because it's got a seed that she
Oh,
keeps.
okay, right. I thought it was an apple, but yeah.
Yeah, but she like her mum gives her a seed to
Mm,
look after, to remind her of the green place,
mm,
or to you know um, regrow the green place.
mhm.
Um, so she But at the same time, I think one of her famous quotes within it is "I am Furiosa."
Yes.
So she becomes Furiosa. Her identity is tied to the ultimately the war rig. Is that what it is? Like, why does she become Furiosa? Do you know what I mean? Because remember how in the movie it's after she loses her arm and she
Yeah.
goes back to um, the Senegal
The Citadel.
Citadel.
Yeah.
Um, she tries to get back up onto that
Mm.
escalating thing. She says, "I am Furiosa," something something. Remember?
Oh, maybe she was just claiming her like her identity. She was just
Yeah,
owning it.
yeah.
Um,
Because it's a big part of her character, right?
yeah.
You know, I was just wondering where that came from.
Okay.
Yeah, don't
Well,
know.
no, but I mean, she has a lot of fury in her, so I think it makes sense that her name is Furiosa, which I still can't say 100% correctly. But yeah,
Furiosa,
yeah, Furiosa.
Furiosa. And so, yeah, the other movie. Do you want to introduce the latest Apes movie?
Yeah. So the latest Apes movie, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, directed by Wes Ball. Um, it was written by Josh Friedman. So it's the latest movie of the franchise. There was Rise in 2011, Dawn in 2014, and War in 2017. Obviously, there's the previous films from 1968 to 1973, which I haven't seen,
Hmm.
but the more recent modern franchise is one of my favorite franchises. Um, I think it's uh, the humanity and the empathy in these films are just extraordinary. And it's interesting that this particular film was directed by Wes Ball, who did the Maze Runner franchise.
Hmm.
Obviously, different from the previous films directed by who was the last
Matt
director?
Reeves.
Matt Reeves,
Mm.
who really did something amazing with this series. But yeah, the first movie was directed by Rupert Wyatt. Anyway, um, so in this one, it's pretty much the like generations after Caesar, who's the main character in the first three films, after he passes away. Caesar was played by the legendary actor Andy Serkis, and I think it's a huge achievement in terms of oh my god, sorry. In character development, the storytelling and visual effects.
Mhm.
Um, the series is very well known for a very particular scene in the first movie with James Franco and Tom Felton when Caesar he says no for the first time.
Mm.
And I remember like that people say that it's one of the most powerful scenes in cinema. And like every time I watch that scene, I get goosebumps. Like it's just incredible. But anyway, this particular film is about Noah, played by Owen Teague, and he goes on a journey. He meets a human, played by Freya Allen, who's also in The Witcher. They initially call her Nova, but her name's actually May. And in this world where apes have taken over, now humans can't talk and apes can. And then there's the antagonist, played by Kevin Durand, who plays Proximus Caesar. And he basically has a human um, teaching him philosophy, uh, books about the Roman Empire, and then he kind of spins it and he dominates the apes that he takes care of, and he is a tyrant as well. So everyone's like allegiant to him, and then Noah and his group of friends come, and they basically want to take back power and fight against injustice.
Mm. I thought, oh, and so I suppose there's quite a few being the new movie. We're introduced to a whole bunch of new characters.
Yep.
But I thought Owen Teague as Noah, had there was the motion capture
Yeah.
technology that's used. Even if you look back to 2011, I think it was 2011. Maybe the second one's sort of the early 2000s where they relaunched Planet of the Apes with Matt Reeves. The 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 resolution and the quality of that technology and the way it's rendered on the screen is is really remarkable, and it's just got even better.
Mhm.
I thought Owen Teague was really good. Kevin Durand, who hasn't had many lead roles in movies, he's been in all sorts of things as Proximus Caesar, was really effective as well. Um, and I th- the thing that really struck me, and I think that's different to the other films, certainly the more recent films, is that um, just like Furiosa, it's quite a long runtime. So I
Mhm.
think it's around 2 hours,
Yeah.
20 minutes. Uh, I went and watched the movie with a friend on a big screen, and about 25, 30 minutes in, I just turned to him and I go, "Are we going to be watching apes talk to each other the whole time?" I may
Yeah.
not have said it like that. I'm like, is is it a bit strange we're just watching apes talk to
Mm.
one another? And that's pretty much what it is. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
the Nova, Freya Allen's character Nova doesn't do any talking
Mm.
um,
Until the end, like, yeah.
until the end, and I don't know if that was. I thought that was trying to connect with War of the Planet of the Apes because that's what happens with all the humans. Uh, they sort of devolve,
Yeah.
um, and uh, so, but at the same time, you do create this strange empathy
Mhm.
for the apes, and I found the, the like the death of one of the
Mm.
characters to
Yeah.
be like it was. There's a few deaths in there. Won't spoil them, but they really sort of get you.
Mm.
I went and rewatched War of the Planet of the Apes, and the same thing. There's some sort of uh, I don't know. There's a deep connection
Mm.
there, and so I sort of feel more empathy for the ape characters dying than the humans,
Yeah.
and I don't know what it is. Is really strange. Um, there's definitely something there, but yeah, I mean the mo capture technology is remarkable. I mean, I think as a story, it does um, it is a little what's the word? I don't want to just say long. It's kind of it is a little bit bloated,
Yeah.
and given that it is predominantly apes that you're focusing on throughout the movie, um, that is sort of a more challenging watch than some of the other ones.
Mhm.
I also noticed that in War of the Planet of the Apes, there is somewhat of a comic relief that's
Mm.
provided by
Oh, the little monkey.
the bad monkey.
Yeah.
What's his name? Who's um,
But yeah,
yeah,
I know who you
yeah.
mean. Yeah.
So it's Steven Zahn,
Mm.
um, who's the bad ape in War of the Planet of the Apes. He does bring this sort of comedic relief because, um, you know, if there wasn't that, it's a pretty dark movie. Um, and the same goes with Kingdom.
Mm.
You've got William H Macy as
Yeah.
obviously not an ape. He's a human in there, but you've got him as what is his name? Trevathian,
Mm.
who has been basically captured by Proximus Caesar um, as a librarian, someone to upskill and provide knowledge. The other thing that I noticed with this movie is you you still I don't know, like you can still sympathize with Proximus Caesar.
Mm.
I mean, he is
He's a dictator.
he is
Yeah.
he is a dictator, but in all of the movies there is one stronger ape. There is a leader of those apes, and they're trying to protect their own society, their own um, uh, civilization, basically. And they see humans as the enemy, um, and uh, they need to protect themselves. And right or wrong, you you know you can relate in a way to Proximus Caesar, even if he's not doing it in a particular um, appropriate way.
Mhm.
Uh, and yeah, any themes that you sort of were able to identify with in
Mm.
Kingdom?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of self-awareness and acceptance. There's obviously resilience and perseverance from the main characters, a lot of bravery, courage. And, the movies themselves are like a mirror of our humanity.
Mm,
It shows the destructiveness of our species, the complexity of language and communication, like the very fact that the funny scene where the apes are so shocked that a human starts speaking
mm,
when May starts speaking. I found that funny. And yeah, just like self-awareness of the darker sides of human nature. So it does touch upon other themes like identity, internal conflict, obviously war, challenging the status quo, and at the end, hope. I also wanted to say that both Furiosa and Planet of the Apes show that, like, ultimately, we will revolt against injustice, brutality, and tyranny.
mm,
It doesn't like matter what species we are; like, we will do that. Um, and yeah, there is some empathy towards the antagonists. Like I said, I like Dementus because I found his him with the teddy bear was I don't know what that was about, but I empathized with him to an extent, and I did also with Proximus Caesar. So it's just really interesting. I think it just shows our humanity, and like you said with the mocap and CGI, the facial expressions, the way that apes move, like it was, I think, pioneering at the time 2011 when Rise came out.
mm,
So yeah, I did enjoy it, but it's my least favorite out of the four films. My favorite is Dawn, the second one in 2014.
mm. And something I want to call out, I think that we need to acknowledge with both Furiosa and the latest Kingdom, the latest Apes movie, is if you want to go and experience creativity and art um, in a cinematic form, these types of movies are highly skilled um, examples of creativity and art. So the fact that you're watching apes for 2.5 hours interact, fight, climb trees, express emotions is just the remarkable use of technology, um, and art basically. And it's the same with Furiosa. The world building, the unique characters, the set pieces, um, the production design. You could view George Miller at this point in his very long career as you know not only an I always pronounce the word an auteur,
Auteur.
auteur, but he's an artist.
Yeah, he is.
And there is something really powerful about going and experiencing art. Um, and I don't know how to tie this in without sounding too much of a plug, but a a collaborator, let's call it, within the movie health space. Um, Yuri Elkington actually shared a piece of research on LinkedIn, which went to look at the um, the role of art and being mentally healthy. And so there was a study to quantify the relationship between recreational arts and engagement
Mm.
and mental well-being in the general population. Um, and it's a fascinating piece of research. I mean, it didn't cover cinema as one of those recreational arts. It looked
Mhm.
at theatre going to certain types of festivals, going to galleries. But basically, it looked at, around the study was done in Western Australia with a sample of about 700 using the Warwick Edinburgh mental well-being scale.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about that. Was used to measure mental well-being. That's something we should probably look at. But art engagements, including attending events, and I would also say cinema. There's a non-linear relationship, um, but what it actually found is around 100 hours per year, which is about 2 hours per day, I believe, can provide improvements or maintain your mental health. And so, to connect the dots with movies and mental health, and to consider cinema as art, to consider these types of big experiences as art. You can certainly take some comfort in knowing that if you go and spend 2 hours in the cinema and experience that art, experience how a movie was made to be shown in a cinema, you can know that it's certainly beneficial for your mental health. It's good to laugh.
No, it is. I've been
Yeah,
going to a lot of art festivals. But anyway, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's been
because art's good for you, right? So those movies.
awesome.
Yeah, so I think there's a big part, just to experience these movies for the art that they are, and the artistic endeavor of those directors. And just to wrap up, I was just thinking, we should probably share what are some of the movies that we're planning to watch. For me personally, I haven't seen any of the original Planet of the Apes movies, so they're all available on streaming. So I'm going to spend the weekend starting in 1968 and watching, what is it, Charlton Heston,
Oh yeah.
um, in the original. And so, see if I can take it. But I'm going to go and watch the original Planet of the Apes movies. How about you, Catherine?
I'll probably rewatch the last three because I haven't seen them in a while.
Yeah.
And there's a few horror movies coming out, just as an aside.
Okay.
The Watches in a Quiet Place, Day One. Very excited for those.
Okay. Cool. Is there anything else you'd like to say to close it all out?
I think both movies feature courage, resilience, and perseverance. And yeah, watch them on the big screen for sure.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Bye. The Movie Health Podcast is proudly supported by Telemoods by eClapper Project Inc. Telemoods recommends which movies and TV series to watch by matching the user's mood and real-time offer of all streaming platforms. Download Telemoods today.